Hello, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. I'm Giacomo, I'm your host, and today is the first episode. So, what I want to do, I want to start off very simply by introducing myself and explain to you who I am, what I do, why I do what I do, what I believe, what I don't believe in. Um, so, I'm Giacomo, as I said, I am a personal trainer based in London, UK. I have been currently living in London and in the UK more specifically for 9 years now. I moved here in 2014, just over 9 years ago, 6 September 2014, from Italy. I come from a small town near Rome, by the south of Rome, kind of like an hour away. Um, and yeah, I moved here as soon as I finished high school to go to university. I went on to study sports science, sport and exercise science more specifically. I have incredibly interest, incredible interest towards the human body. I got fascinated about the human body when we started it, when I was studying biology in my year before last in high school, and we did a chapter about the human body, training, muscle protein synthesis, and all this stuff. I remember that stuff just hit me, and I became incredibly fascinated by the um by the ability of the body to adapt to different stimuli, really. And I remember seeing the picture of the sprinter in the cover of the chapter of that chapter that we were gonna cover, and I remember thinking, wow, how amazing the body can look and obviously perform, and also like how cool would it be to actually find out how to make people look like that and perform like that. Um, Funny enough, that's a sparkle really that really something kicked in to me and just led me to go and pursue my studies in sports science. I did not know what exactly I wanted to be. I thought I wanted to be more of an S&C coach and performance coach. But with time and with experiences, different experiences, I ended up more into the path of personal training and helping people in general with the struggles. And again, I will get to that in a moment. So, sports science in my undergrad, I did a 2 years of work experience as an internship when I was there with the S&C coaches of the university that I was where I was studying, and following into also a football academy in Leyton Orient in my final year as an S&C coach for the academy. For those of you who are not familiar with it, S&C coach means essentially strength and conditioning coach or fitness coach. Essentially, who works on improving the athlete's physical ability, so speed, strength, ability of changing direction, so agility, um, everything that has not to do with technique, so with technical and tactical skills that those are covered by the coach, but more specific sports training that requires the stamina, the speed, the strength. That's what an S&C coach does. And it's split into two parts really. Split into the work that you do in the gym and the work that you do on the pitch. Because it both obviously relates to the ability of the athlete to transfer to the sports to improve their performance and to prevent injuries essentially. So after that, I moved um, into a year after the first 3 years of university. I moved into a year where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I did not find a job after university. My job finding skills were non-existent looking back then. So I ended up I did not find a job into the field that I want to do, into the field that I studied, but I did obviously ended up working in hospitality first and in retail after, just as a typical Italian will do in London. Um, I did my year working around these areas, and obviously I was trying to figure out what I actually and how I can actually transfer my skills to a different scenario. Those jobs looking back were great because they taught me a lot about working under pressure, keeping eye on details, working with the general population and working with a variety of different people every day, and just being in contact with public all the time. Especially for me, being an introvert, being more an introverted person than an extroverted person, that really forced me out of my comfort zone and really gave me um, something valuable that I've then been able to apply to my coaching and to my career in general. So when I was during this year, I was one of my jobs. I was working as a sales assistant in ASICS or ASICS, however you want to pronounce it, in Oxford Street, actually, in the store that they had back there at the corner, and we were performing running analysis of clients who wanted to buy shoes, essentially, just to check essentially if they were pronating or supinating that this fancy fitness no sorry gait analysis test, which most often not did not work, and it was just a way for them to essentially sell them expensive shoes. But their shoes are actually really good, and they divided their shoes obviously for people who pronate, so with people that with feet fall inwards, and for people who supinate, so with people who which feet fall outwards. So I remember doing millions of tests every day. I obviously was talking to people every day, all day, about their problems, about the running issues. And I was like, how cool would it be, again, to find something that actually can prevent people from getting injured? Because most people came to ASICS with a problem that they loved running and that they got injured. So therefore, they decided to invest a bit of money into a pair of shoes that will probably make their running better, or at least not worse. So therefore, I went to study a master's degree into, again, exercise science, but this time onto the clinical side of it. A clinical just meaning studying the chronic diseases of the body, the chronic diseases, the more common chronic diseases really that affect the body, in more particular, more prevalently like cardiovascular chronic diseases. How to work around those, how to prevent those, and how to generally just deal with them, both from an exercise perspective, also from a lifestyle, um, and psychological perspective. So that was then I moved to Portsmouth to study my master's degree, and I stayed there for a year. And after this year, my um, job finding skills actually got better, and I managed to find a job into the NHS. Even before finishing the master's degree, actually, I was still writing the thesis and the dissertation, so I was in the last part of the degree of the masters. I managed to find a job back in London, in St George's Hospital in Tooting, Southwest London, for those of you who know it, or also for those of you that are in the areas. So then I moved back there to start working as I was finishing my thesis and my dissertation. The job that I found in NHS was as an exercise instructor, as exercise physiologist in cardiac rehabilitation. So again, for people who have had cardiac conditions, and might have gone through the operation of a bypass or stent or heart failure complications, or cardiac arrest even, and to guide them through the 8-week period of rehabilitation, of training rehabilitation that we will deliver as part of the NHS service, which is awesome. Really, really great experience, working again with different all sorts of patients, really, from young people to older to slightly older. Really got to see a lot onto how the body gets affected by and especially the heart and the cardiovascular system by more often than not, I would say, choices made over time, small choices built up over time, and just something that really again fascinated me and stayed with me, and I kept with me as I moved back into the fitness industry. So I did that job for a year, and as the pandemic started to happen, I was still there, but I was already looking to make a move. And with time, I realized that obviously being a starting job wasn't gonna pay much more than just my bills. And even though it wasn't giving me much money, it was giving me a lot of skills and a lot of knowledge that then I could then go and reapply into what I thought was probably better of, which is the general population. So again, I moved into the fitness industry to try and actually convey the message of what happens if you don't take care of your health, and if you don't put it into perspective, into a long-term scenario, what might be the consequences, and how these can affect you for the rest of your life, and really like just deteriorate your state of well-being for the for a few decades of your life. Because believe it or not, most of the patients that I would see were not in the 80s or 90s, but the majority of them, probably over the 50% of them, were between the 40 to 60s, which is crazy, like again, considering they're really young, and they will have to deal with this atherosclerosis, which is chronic obstruction of the arteries of the veins from the buildup of plaque for the rest of their lives. Because again, atherosclerosis is not something that you can get rid of once you get it. And again, this is something that most people probably don't know, or they are not aware of enough. So that was then the reason why obviously the kickstart of the pandemic made things a bit more challenging, but I did find a way to make it back to the fitness industry, and I started my journey as a personal trainer ever since. Different studios, different gyms, personal training studios. Now I'm in a commercial gym, and my role is essentially to make people stick to a safe and sound exercise training routine, and also to guide them into their nutrition and into the lifestyle choices, so that they can be as healthy as they can possibly be, and they can exercise obviously with safety, with accountability, but more importantly, I think with some expert guidance and some real advice that is not just textbook based, but it's also a bit more real life based. I always try to find ways to work with clients that have real life struggles. Obviously, we don't live in a utopic world, in a utopic reality where we have time to do everything that we want to, but knowing what we need to prioritize and how we can prioritize those is really important. And I think it does make a really important effect, as I said, not just in the short term, but I'm also always considering the medium and long term effects of the actions of my clients in their health, longevity, and fitness, of course. So then, obviously, this is what I do as a profession, and this is why I do it. Pretty much, I've got fascinated with the human body, and the more I studied it, the more I find it really, really interesting, really, really fascinated. There is a lot that can be done working with people, not just from a physiological perspective, so from in terms of like exercise, execution, training, frequency, and whatnot, but also, and this is something that I found out pretty soon as I started studying sports science in my degree, and as I started to have coaching experience with the athletes of the university with the S&C coaches of the university, is to how you can actually help people achieve their goals by trying to find out the reasons, the motivation, and therefore looking at the psychology of behavior change, essentially, and of exercise more broadly speaking. So this is pretty much me in a nutshell, and what I like to do, what I specialize to do at the moment, and what I got to specialize a little bit more as I got a bit more in depth with my practice, and as I got a bit more um, sound and tested, let's say, is to really get clients to work on their uh, work to change their bodies from an inside out perspective. And that means obviously inside out meaning putting in the first place the change into the um, internal health, so the health in general, both psychological and physical, then will drive the changes that they will see uh, outside in their performance, in their aesthetics, in their physique. So, and this is what I like to call, as I said, like an inside out transformation coaching. Um, there is a lot of obviously body transformation coaches, but my experience with body transformation is that um, it can be very much done in a way where it makes you look much better, of course, but it makes you feel much worse. Okay. And my perspective was I want people to feel much better and then therefore to look much better. So that means putting into practice with the habits, having to find a nice and stable, solid, enjoyable routine around both exercise and nutrition in a way that we can both maximize the um, physiological benefits as well as the psychological benefits, as I said before. This essentially means that a typical body transformation uh, scenario will require you to train a lot, to do a lot of endless cardio, to try and lose as much weight as possible in the shortest amount of time possible to make into a before and after set scenario. But again, not taking you through the process of explaining to you, first of all, how change happens, what happens into our bodies, what happens to our health when we go through a process of change. Why is that important? How can you benefit in the long term from losing fat, building muscle, and by how can you do this more sustainably and more less difficultly. I'll make it basically making it easier for you just by adopting simple changes. Like, for example, instead of demonizing carbs, um, why don't we talk a bit more about the importance of protein? Most of us, most of my clients, and most of us in general, most of the population in general, under consume protein dramatically into our diet. And now the consumption of protein helps not only to maintain muscle mass and to improve the levels of muscle mass, but also improves our levels of health in general, both metabolic health, hormonal health, brain health even. Um, the importance of, again, instead of um, focusing too much on counting calories, which it is important. So yeah, these are essentially what I specifically apply with my clients. And as I said, like I know that most people that come to see me, most of my clients, both in the past and the present, are no idea and no time how to how to go about um training, how to go about nutrition. There's a lot of myths, um there's a lot of stuff that gets in the way. There's a lot of self-limiting beliefs as well. So what I like to do with my clients is to uncover this and to try and obviously bust myths, give them solid evidence-based information that they can apply to their lives if they want to, obviously. And this is what I want to do with this podcast as well. So I'll try and make it a bit more practical, make it a bit more like evidence-based, but also real life-based scenarios. And I want to discuss a bit more the nuance of the health and fitness industry, and how we can make our lives better essentially by focusing on important habits and changing habits and and trying to stick to it for as long as possible. So guys, I will say that for today is probably enough, because as I said, it's my first episode, and talking to the camera to myself is really, really awkward. Especially because I've been talking about myself, which, believe it or not, I don't really like doing. So I will I will close it here for today. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening. And I hope to see you here for the next episode, where we will start talking a bit more about some, as I said, practical advice, real life advice, health and fitness industry, health and fitness in general, and some advice from a personal trainer. Thank you very much.